Chris is the next speaker, and the chair of the session is Mariana Orellana. She's there, so, well, your time. Thank
Hi,
you.
can you hear
It's
me?
involved. Yes, Mariana, we can hear you very well.
Excellent. It is my pleasure to introduce the seventh invited speaker in our schedule. Professor Chris Impey is from the Department of Astronomy at the University of Arizona, where he's a university distinguished professor in view of his great career and skills. He has actually won many teachings awards. He's a very prolific author, not only as a researcher, but he has written two astronomy textbooks, a novel, a novel also, and eight popular books on astronomy. Okay, I'll let you start, Chris. I will tell you when you have only 2 minutes left, and everybody, you can have your questions in the question and answers space.
So thank you for the introduction. Is everyone seeing my screen? Is that okay? I'm sharing my screen. Is that okay? And audio okay? And I'll start.
It's okay, yes.
Okay. Well, it's great to be here. This is a very important meeting for me and for all of us who care about education and outreach. So I have a tough job to cover a lot of ground in 20 minutes. I'll try. And luckily, Suzanne has done such a wonderful job. I don't need to talk about the IAU organization, but I will point out one number to me that's very important, which is that Division C has 2,400 active members. So 1 in 5 of all IAU members are in this division. So, for those of us who sometimes feel that education and outreach are the stepchild or the Cinderella in the astronomy professional realm, that's not true. Many people are interested in it and motivated to do it. And so we know, thanks to Susanna's talk, what the mechanisms are within the IAU. So I'm going to talk about a few fundamental things and also recognize that the education aspect of astronomy and outreach, they have some overlap, and you'll see that in what I'm going to talk about. Many of us who teach astronomy have faced a major upheaval because of the pandemic, and so we've moved into a mode where we have to be remote, where we use online classes. That's been a very difficult process, and people have learned how to do it. So the education side of astronomy has been in upheaval because so many people who never taught online now have to teach online. But there's a benefit to this because as an educator, I would say that lecturing is very 20th century, standing in front of a group of people or students and lecturing. So now we can flip our classrooms or teach fully online, where the students or people you're teaching will look at your video lectures ahead of time or outside the class time. And then you can use the online environment to engage them in different ways and have a more active and meaningful experience. And we have to use different modalities of teaching. When you teach in this new world of mostly online teaching, you have to have some component that's synchronous. It's important for students to feel like they're in a cohort, in a group. It's better to engage them real time, feedback in real time, and there's some background noise, but that's not from me. Anyway, someone has their mic on with background noise. It's gone away. So there's synchronous learning, but there's also asynchronous learning. And in good online teaching, you can combine both of these methods. Students like the flexibility of some types of instruction where they can choose their own time and work at their own pace. So the modern world of online astronomy teaching mixes these modes. And of course, everything I'm saying now does not apply just to astronomy. This is about online teaching in any subject. But in science particularly, we have a very profound evidence in the research literature that active learning methods work. That if you care more about what students are learning as opposed to what you're teaching or think you're teaching, there are these methods, these activities listed there, and there are others, where you make students part of their learning process. It's not passive, it's active. Now, there's a challenge to doing that online, for sure, and I will talk about some of the methods we can use. But the research data has spoken very loudly on this. This is a better mode of teaching that we should all try and adopt as much as we can. And there are many methods. You don't have to use all of them. You can pick and choose from among these methods. Just recently, I've been involved in 2 ebooks, which can be, you can have them physically printed if you like, but they're fundamentally ebooks. They're part of a collaboration between the AAS and the Institute of Physics, who is the vendor for the AAS journals, professional journals. And they've had an ebook series which has had many research titles, and I'm pleased with my colleagues Sandlin Buxner and Matthew Wenger here in Arizona. We co-edited the first 2 imprints in the education part of this series of ebooks. And this, you will see, is our collection, including some of the people that are on this call and at this meeting, of how to use evidence-based instruction in your teaching of astronomy at any level, but primarily at the introductory level. And so that's a book that came out in September, and one that will come out pretty much within a month, maybe by the end of the year, is the one about best practices for online learning environments. And this is very important for all of us now that we are forced to be online. And so that's another collection of articles from practitioners, the best people doing this kind of work around the country and internationally. So I recommend those 2 books to you. We use textbooks online too. There are free textbooks. I think it's important in equity issues in teaching that we have resources that don't cost a lot of money that are available, especially around the world where people don't always have the resources. Books are very expensive. Astronomy textbooks in the United States cost over $100. But there is a free textbook, OpenStax Astronomy, for example. I have a free textbook on a Teach Astronomy website, and you can click a button and get Google Translation. I'm not going to boast or claim anything special about Google Translate. Clearly, for for colloquial or rich discussion translation, it's not adequate. But for simple technical writing, it does a decent, serviceable job, and it's there at the click of a button into 100 languages if you want it. And so that matters in terms of having a worldwide reach for these materials, because the cost of translating with labor would, of course, be extraordinary. There's 700,000 words in all the articles in my online textbook, for example. So we want to talk about interactive materials, because these are in the bridge between education and outreach. A worldwide telescope is one I will always mention, because it was originally an application, computer application from Microsoft. It was taken over by the AAS and now is open source. It's available in HTML5 through browser delivery, and it's an extremely rich environment for learning, for creating tours of various astronomical objects and topics, for accessing all the deep sky databases. And this is a tool I think works very well in both outreach as well as in formal education settings. And the group at Harvard have put together some tours, some guided tours. There are over 50 actually. So if you don't want to build your own tour of some region of the universe or part of the wavelength spectrum, you can go with what they created. I'll also bring attention to a set of resources out of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln by Kevin Lee, now at the NSF. And these are very high quality interactive tools for teaching simple concepts in astronomy, and there are over 50 of them, and they're very useful in many teaching situations, because students can control the quantities, the parameters, they can explore these sort of simulation type data, and that's a valuable mode, I think, for teaching. Also out of the University of Nebraska are some other interactive tools which you can use to make questions and do quizzes and tests in your class. And collectively, this is a very valuable set of resources for using online when you teach. This is more based out of physics, out of the University of Colorado, where Carl Wyman was for many years. But many fundamental physics concepts, of course, are taught in an astronomy class about radiation and matter and so on. And so these simulations that are available, of course, free online, are extremely effective. They've been road tested with tens of thousands of students at the University of Colorado. So they're very high quality in terms of their pedagogy. I will bring attention to something that many of us do, but I really think it's a powerful thing, both in teaching and outreach. So this crosses E and PO, if you like, which is polling. So this is one tool, the one I use, but there are others. This one is very powerful though. Poll Everywhere is a software that you can install. You can embed it in PowerPoint, for example. You can run it off a browser, and here's the interface. You can use it on any smartphone, and even if your phone is an old-fashioned one, you can text message and use this tool. So it's basically a way of polling your class, or if you're giving a public lecture, of talking to your public audience and asking them questions, and in real time getting the answers, the data, provoking discussion, testing misconceptions, whatever it is you want to do, and the answers appear in graphical form wherever you're displaying them, in a classroom or an auditorium. For example, here is a poll, a multiple choice poll, where I asked the public audience how many fake science or bad science web pages they thought there were. The answer is depressing, it's over 1 billion. And then in a formal class, I asked people what they wanted to get out of the class, and you can rank order answers too. You can also use open-ended response and then form a word cloud. And that's just it's just very nice. And you can watch this word cloud evolving as people answer. So when you are giving a lecture publicly to hundreds of people, they love watching this happen as they respond with their smartphones and they answer your question. Or you can use a clickable map, for instance, or any visual, any graphic. So you can use testing. You can do testing with this too. This in case is just where people were born in the United States. And again, the answers appear and are updated in real time. So I think polling is a very powerful tool for engaging in class or a public audience. Planetaria are important. It's nice if you have a planetarium where you work or where you teach or where you give lectures. But of course, there are very powerful tools, and I think working them into a class or an outreach presentation is very useful. Starry Night is the one that has the greatest impact in the classroom, because they've worked with instructors to produce 60 or 70 sort of canned tours of the night sky or historical sky or positional astronomy. So there are already presentations that have been created using Starry Night. It's a very powerful piece of software. It's not free, however, so I will point out that Stellarium, which I've also used, is almost as capable, and it's freely available. So these are ways, of course, of connecting people with the sky. If you aren't out there watching it, there's no substitute for the real thing, of course. And then many of these are available on smartphones. So I've pointed out 2, Night Sky and Star Chart, that are free. And it's useful to use these in adjunct with a class, or just to get people more engaged with astronomy. These are highly capable apps now that attach to databases to give you information on the objects you see. They, of course, use positional sensitivity to overlay the constellations. You can track the space station moving overhead, whatever you want. They're very powerful, very effective. And NASA's smartphone app is actually very good. I always recommend it too. Citizen science is a powerful way of engaging your audience, could be students, could be the general public, with real research data sets. Zooniverse was the original citizen science project, and at this point, Galaxy Zoo, the original project, has had over 60,000 volunteers make nearly 2 million galaxy classifications. And the key here is these are real research data sets, Sloan Digital Sky Survey typically for galaxies, or other data sets where people do scientifically meaningful things and they learn about the subject. And this is very engaging for people. It's a very effective way to pull in an audience. This is what the Galaxy Zoo interface looks like. This has obviously been used so long that it made a record. The statistic I would recall from the previous slide is that citizen scientists, which is to say students or members of the public, have been co-authors in over 300 research publications out of citizen science. It's a remarkable achievement of this type of work. And it's not just Galaxy Zoo. Currently, the Zooniverse website talks about 17 astronomy-related projects, ranging from exoplanets to stellar evolution to the classic Galaxy Zoo, hunting for supernovae and distant galaxies, and so on. I mean, this is an exciting way to engage people with science and astronomy online. We'll talk about social media briefly, and thanks to Pamela Gay for these slides. It's an important way, either in a classroom where we need some asynchronous communication and other ways to engage students, or with a public audience. we have ways of pushing information with social media. YouTube, of course, is a big channel in this, but that's sort of unidirectional. The social media are used, such as, classically LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram if you're dealing with visual material, to create a community. So you can create an online community. And I've used social media in a structured way in teaching. It's also, of course, possible to engage public audiences with this and have downstream conversations that continue. So this is just a very sticky way to convey our beautiful subject, I think. And really, we need to make all sorts of ideas for how to teach astronomy and convey it to the public. We have long form storytelling, we have essays, we have articles, we write papers, popular books, and so on. But we also need the short form too. We need the small punchy news stories, the little insights, the little beautiful images that come up, and so on. So both of these are necessary, I think. And I'll point out a couple of tools that I've used that are useful for creating sort of asynchronous discussions and chat and messaging. There's Slack, which can come from the business community. It does have a cost, but it's very highly capable. And then Discord, which is was a little more underground because it came from the gaming community, but it's free and it's also very capable. So these are ways of increasing the engagement if you teach, and you can use them with public audiences too for outreach. I can't give all the resources in the short time I have available, but obviously we all know about APOD, Astronomy Picture of the Day, which is now heading to close to 10,000 images since 1995. Beautiful, the best images in our subject with rich hyperlinked captions. It's a great way to create an assignment for your class if you're teaching, or again, to put into your talks if you're giving a public presentation, because as you can imagine, with 10,000 images, essentially everything is covered in this resource. There are also the podcasts numbering almost 3,000 now that started in the International Year of Astronomy at the 365 Days of Astronomy site, and I've used them in teaching. They're wonderfully diverse. They can include interviews with astronomers. They include very topical things about discoveries. They include positional astronomy, what's up in the sky, events in the sky. They're very varied. You should browse them to get a sense of the range of these resources, and they're valuable, I think, in our work too. And then at AstroBetter, you can actually find a nice set of blogs created by professional astronomers, and I think the most engaging and interesting of them are created by students, often graduate students from around the world, and they just give people an insight into what it's like to be an astronomer. I think sometimes either our students or the public we deal with, they don't really know what it's like to be in our profession. And blogs are interesting resources because they really give a window into what it's like to be in our field. Many video resources, I can't represent them all, of course, but I'll highlight a few. Crash Course of Astronomy, which was Phil Plait, the bad astronomer. And these are wonderful introductions, self-contained, all short form video. Remember, the sweet spot for video, whether you're teaching or using it for outreach, is sort of 6 to 8 minutes. Attention span drops precipitously beyond that. That's why you should never lecture for 50 minutes. People have gone to sleep after 15. So these are nice short form videos, high production quality. Minute Physics is another example. Although it says physics, many are astronomical, by Henry Reich. And these are the wonderful animated cartoon, the sort of animated stick figure version with very accurate narration and very engaging material. Kurzgesagt from Philipp Detmer in Germany is also beautifully done and arranged. These are full animation, cartoon animation, but again, astronomically highly accurate and very interesting topics that he covers. And then the TED organization has an educational arm where many different authors have participated, and these are close to 50 videos now, and also very useful for teaching purposes. And SciShow, I recommend also. Hank Green, he's one of the originators of the sort of science online movement 10 years ago, and still has some of the best content that's out there. Briefly, I'll mention games. NASA has a classic game that it developed 15 years ago. It's still pretty good. You can use it in your class. You can do it as an application or online. There's a nice tool called Universe Sandbox, which lets people create their own solar systems. You get to be master of your little universe and learn a lot about planetary astronomy in the meantime. So gamifying astronomy is a very powerful tool. And if you want to go fully to the game and entertainment. And yes, there is even one that came out of the Harry Potter series.
2 minutes left.
Okay. So I'll finish with some virtual resources. I've put together, with the help of my programmer, Alexander Denehy, a virtual reality tour of our telescopes in Arizona. Of course, some of them are in Chile. They're on 5 different mountaintops here. But in this virtual space, we can put them together, show the laser guide star you see coming there from the LBT, and you can walk around and get a full sense of the scale of these fantastic telescopes, including our GMT, our 22-meter that's being built in Chile now. There's a world called Second Life where you can have an avatar, you can have real estate, you can set up facilities. Tony Kreider has built a planetarium in there. This is free. It's free to be an avatar and go into these worlds. And it's very interesting for educational purposes. And this is a different way of doing, this is obviously cutting edge at some level. Second Life did peak and has faded a bit, but it's still used by educators. I had students build projects in a timeline of the Earth. And these are dynamic. You don't get a sense of the dynamism and the animation from a still. But the students made their own science center exhibits, basically, in a virtual world. And you can explore this. And I built on the upper here is my office. I had a nice office in Second Life. It's nicer than my real office. And I also even gave lectures in an auditorium in Second Life. And that's getting a little meta when you think about having yourself as an avatar in a virtual world, lecturing virtual students through a computer. That's a little secondhand. And I'll finish with one tool that we're building now, which is to chop up what over the years with my massive online classes have been hundreds of hours of video Q&As. We've chopped them up into single Q&As with transcripts and used AI or machine learning to match questions with answers. And we're very close to a tool where you can type a question into a text box and it will search this vast amount of content and give you the answer. I mean, as a little video clip with me, basically. And we also have developed astronomy skills for the Google and Amazon smart speakers. So you can just install that skill and then ask your smart speaker, oh, what happens when a star dies? Or how fast is the universe expanding? I think we're only a couple of months away from that. So that's sort of the bleeding edge of where I'm going with the technology. But thanks very much. And I hope there's some questions.
Thank you very much, Chris. An impressive presentation. Very complete and wow, congratulations. A lot of work have been done. And actually, there are people asking if you are going to share the presentation.
Yes, I'll find out from the organizers, the best way to do that. Absolutely, I'll share my slides. And some of them will annotate with the sources if they weren't already.
Thank you. Will be great. It will be also in YouTube for the people who want to see it again. There are a couple of comments telling they already use some of the resources you mentioned, like OpenStack, the online books, the PHET. Well, and also there is a question from Nestor Camino asking about the IOP ebooks, if they are for free.
I'm afraid not. I wish they were. We're still in a little battle with IOP over the pricing of those books because they set the pricing similar to the level for the research volumes in the series. And we understand that educators, both in the United States and elsewhere, don't always have those resources. So we're shooting for a price for educators of $50. I don't know what that is in euros, but and then if you have a subscription, now the best way is probably going to be if you're at an educational institution, because in that case, the subscription is probably held by your library. But we understand that some people may not have access that way.
Thank you. Okay, another comment about the Galaxy Zoo. Somebody, I cannot pronounce the name, sorry, but the last name is Pedraza. He's saying that the bad point of Galaxy Zoo is that the publication does not include the names of the people that was working on it. And for example, my undergraduate students want to see their names in the paper. What can you comment about?
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't. That's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not involved in the Galaxy Zoo project. I know citizen scientists have co-authored papers, but again, I would be unhappy if students who worked on a paper that got published were not credited with it. I mean, I can ask what their policy is, but I would hope that's not true generally.
I see.
I do
Oh,
know that undergraduates have been co-authors of refereed publications from Galaxy Zoo, so it definitely happens, but this is bad if it didn't happen this time.
well, we have also people asking about the non-native English people. Uh, what can you recommend? They say it is difficult for students and teachers to use content, even if good one is only in English.
Yes, I understand that. And so I would just hope that some forms of the materials I've been talking about are more amenable to use by international audiences. I would, for example, say that the APOD, the Astronomy Picture of the Day resources, are very valuable because you can use those and you can insert them into your own little assignment or your own use and then write, what you need in your native language. It is true that translation of these resources is challenging. I'm part of a project through the astrobiology part of IU's commission to have astrobiology videos translated into Spanish, large number of Spanish-speaking astronomers and astrobiologists. And so there are little side projects, under the IU umbrella that are trying to translate quality materials, in this case, dozens of astrobiology videos into Spanish. But, it's a lot of work, and that unfortunately is hard to do that at large scale. I would also say that some of the interactive tools, some of the simulations and interactive tools, they're more numeric or visual or graphical, and so they don't depend as much on language. So some of the resources I think are more easy to use if you're in a non-English situation.
Excellent. Well, great to listen to you. Thank you very much for this excellent presentation. I don't see many more questions.
Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone. I look forward to the rest of this very exciting meeting. I'm enjoying it. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.